Meeting will come to order. I'd like to welcome everyone out to the December the 15th, 2025 meeting of the Caswell County Board of Commissioners. If you would, join me in a moment of silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, gentlemen, you have the meeting agenda before you along with the minutes from our meeting on November the 17th and 12/1/25, December the 1st. Any corrections or additions to those minutes? Not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Smith, second from Commissioner Ingram. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Announcements and recognitions. I'll start with you, Commissioner Claggett.
I have none.
All right, Commissioner Ingram,
No, sir.
Commissioner Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the privilege on December the 5th and 6th, to attend the Christmas lighting and the Christmas parade. I just want to give a shout out to everybody who had a hand in that. It was a well orchestrated event. There was a amazing turnout for the Christmas tree lighting, as cold as it was, but I just want to thank everybody who had a hand in it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to recognize the Finance Department for the first time since 2020, having our financial reports current to the state. Congratulations, and hope we can get on 25 and have it ready this spring. Thank you.
Commissioner Holt. All right, public comments.
So we have one person, Ms. Gildry.
Good evening. I represent NORAG Technology at 1214 NC Highway 700 in Pelham. And this letter is to Mr. Scott Whitaker, who is the Caswell County Manager. Dear Mr. Whitaker, NORAG Technology respectfully request a closed session with the Caswell County Commissioners. The objective is to confidentially discuss an outstanding amount owed on a promissory note. Prior to your arrival, several requests were made for an audience with the board regarding this issue, none of which were acknowledged. As committed tenants of Pelham Business Park and the county, we are eager to fulfill our obligations. However, we need to present specific extenuating circumstances that we believe warrant a private discussion to fully understand the context of the outstanding amount. We kindly ask that you help facilitate at the earliest available opportunity so that we may reach a mutually agreeable resolution to this dilemma. Sincerely, Erestorine Gidry, co-owner, NORAG Technology, Chief Financial Officer. Thank you.
That's the only one we
That's
have.
the only one.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Financial report. Let's see, I believe that was included.
So what you have in this month's financial report is really a memo about moving forward with financial reports, and I'll be glad to answer any questions about that. And we have our finance officer here this evening.
From what I gathered, Mr. Whitaker, finance department receipts and payouts are a month behind. Am I reading this right? The way it works?
So there's no great with two meetings that fall earlier in the month and closer to the middle of the month. There's no ideal time to give you a up-to-date full picture, partially because of when the revenues come in. So this is really, as we talked it through internally, we feel like this is the best approach to give you a full picture, but it does keep you a bit behind from month to month. But with that said, you don't have the same caveats of, well, we're missing revenue X, Y, and Z.
Any questions, comments?
Scott, so we could expect to receive November's report, the first session in January. Is that correct?
For the January 5th meeting, correct?
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Does that also apply towards the building inspection report that we're getting monthly? Would that be like 30-day lag also?
I'm not positive. I don't think there needs to be the same lag with that. I'll double check on that because those are pretty immediate when they come in.
Any other questions? All right. Next item is audit presentation for fiscal year 23-24. Hunter Wiseman, I believe, is here tonight with us.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. My name is Hunter Wiseman, representing Thompson, Price, Scott, and Adams, and I'm presenting the fiscal year 2024 audit report for Caswell County. In front of you, you should have a copy of the draft audit report that's been submitted to the LGC, along with a black packet containing the presentation summary. And tonight, we're going to be following from the presentation summary, but the information contained is also contained in the full audit report. If you will go to the agenda. So we are going to start with covering the 260 letter and then the financial performance indicators of concern. The audit results will consist of the summary of information and the summary of charts, and then we will have a time for questions and comments. On the first page, we note that we have completed the audit for fiscal year June 30th, 2024, in accordance with our contract dated January 28th, 2025. We note in the following paragraph that the county has adopted GASB Standard 100 accounting changes and error corrections effective for fiscal year 2024. We note that accounting estimates are an integral part of the financial statements prepared. These estimates particularly pertain to allowance for doubtful accounts and for estimating amortization and depreciation. Page 2, please. We note that the financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. We did not note any significant difficulties when dealing with management and performing and completing our audit. And we are not aware of any uncorrected material misstatements. We're pleased to report that there were no disagreements with management and that the management representation letter was signed on December 1st, 2025. Management may at times seek a second opinion on certain situations when involved in the audit. We're not aware of any consultations with outside accountants. And then to get to the other audit findings and issues, the LGC will no longer initiate a communication with the board, but they do expect a response within 60 days of this presentation to any of the financial statement findings and also financial performance indicators of concern, which we will cover now. The indicators that the county has to address to the LGC are related to appropriated fund balance in the 24-2025 budget and the general fund reporting a decrease in fund balance in fiscal year 23-24, the late submission of the audit, budget violations, and 14 financial statement findings, which are explained below, and the fidelity bond violation. The audit report was not issued until 13 months after the October 31st, 2024 due date. the reasons of which are summarized in the findings issued in the report. We noted that there were various key processes which were not being completed timely, particularly during the year-end close. These are finance functions that should be completed to ensure that balances are appropriately reflected in the general ledger. Finance staff should become more proactive in posting required year-end adjustments, and at year-end, efforts should be made to ensure that all receivables and payables are accurately reflected. We did note recent changes were made in several key finance staff positions, and as a result of these changes, the county has contracted with a third-party CPA firm to assist in performing several key reconciling functions. And in addition, a consultant associated with the League of Municipalities is also assisting the county during its catch-up. We noted that the EMS receivables balances, as well as the allowance, should be reviewed and adjusted throughout the year to give an accurate reflection of billings and collections for EMS. Additionally, the transition in the billing companies has hindered a collection of old balances, so those balances remain on the balance sheet as receivables until the board has taken an action to write those balances off. This was also mentioned in the previous year's letter to governance. Efforts should be made to ensure that negative fund balances are cleared and that all projects which have been completed are closed on the general ledger. The county needs to review the depreciation schedule and prepare a list of assets that have been disposed or are no longer in service throughout the year, as opposed to waiting to year-end. The county should ensure that the LGC 203 reports are being filed timely. The county should ensure that the policy is being followed for all purchases, deposits, journal entries, and budget amendments to include but not limited to pre-audit policy, approval policy, and retention of records. If no such policy is in place, then the county should take efforts to implement policies surrounding these processes. If transfers between funds are being recorded, there should be available budget to reflect those transfers. Additionally, any budget amendments should be recorded prior to expending funds. This is finding 2024-003. The county has one outstanding loan associated with the revolving loan fund that is in arrears. Management needs to review these agreements and determine if the loans are collectible. Amended agreements may be needed between the county and the businesses to attempt to collect these funds for the write-off. The county did not adopt a budget for several new funds, and it did not make budget amendments as needed throughout the year to cover expenses, which are covered in finding 2024-003 and 004. Additionally, our testing noted instances where the pre-audit procedures were not properly followed. Adequate documentation was not obtained throughout the year to substantiate all transactions recorded for the year, finding 2024-006. Additionally, there were daily revenue collections that could not be traced to the general ledger or to the bank statement. Multiple departments, including inspections and planning, register of deeds, tax, and parks and recreation, were noted for not complying with the daily deposit general statutes. Collections in excess of $500 shall be deposited daily. This is finding 2024-008. Board approval was not obtained for tax releases and refunds relating to finding 2024-007. There was also one budget amendment in our sample of 5 that was missing the board's approval. Additionally, it was noted that the county has no formal policy for the journal entry review and approval process. The county did not withhold FICA on retirement contributions, see finding 2024-009. Additionally, it was noted that overtime was underpaid to one employee during our testing. The county's checks did not have the required pre-audit verbiage on the face of the check, and additionally, the county used an unauthorized electronic pre-audit system to pre-audit some expenditures and could not provide a purchase order or proof of pre-audit on several selected checks, which is finding 2024-10. The county should review internal control policies across all departments to mitigate a lack of segregation of duties, finding 2024-12. And due to the county's status on the unit assistance listing, any debt longer than 3 years or $50,000 must be approved by the LGC. The county entered into an agreement for the purchase of defibrillators that exceeded these thresholds but did not receive approval from the LGC, which is finding 2413. The county should be reviewing their unclaimed property list periodically that ensure they remit it to the state treasurer timely, finding 2024-14. Please see the audit report for a more detailed discussion of these findings. In terms of other matters, we do not audit the information which is provided for actuarials such as the LGERS, the ROD, and the OPEB liabilities. And lastly, for restrictions of use, this is intended to be used by the Board of Commissioners and management of Caswell County and is not intended to be and should not be used by anyone other than these specified parties. What you see in front of you is how the LGC presents the financial performance indicators of concern. As noted in our AUC 260 letter here, we're discussing that you have 60 days from the presentation of these results to send them a detailed audit response. That should be developed by working with the board, the finance officer, and the county manager. There were 5 financial performance indicators of concern noted, which need to be addressed to the LGC. The first one relates to the appropriated fund balance. The second one relates to the late submission of the audit. The third one relates to budget violations. The fourth one relates to the finance officer's bonding. And the fifth one relates to any other significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that are financial statement findings in the audit report, which we have covered as we've gone through the 260 letter. But you can also see that on the following pages, the financial statement findings are broken out as well. There were 14 in total. I'm quickly going to cover these. Finding 2024-1 is reconciliation of records. Finding 2024-02, deficit fund balances. Finding 2024-3, budget violations. Finding 2024-4, budget violations for not adopting budgets for the mini grant project fund and special revenue fund. 2024-05 is a late submission of the audit. Finding 2024-6 is retention of records. 2024-07 is a lack of board approval on tax releases and refunds. Finding 2024-8 is daily collections not being deposited timely. Finding 2024-9 is a lack of internal controls around payroll. Finding 2024-10 is a general statute violation for missing the pre-audit verbiage. Finding 2024-11 is for the fidelity bond violation. Finding 2024-12 is for segregation of duties finding. Finding 2024-13 is for the local government commission debt approval. And finding 2024-14 is for escheats and abandoned property and failure to remit. Starting on page 9, we have the summary of financial information for the previous 5 fiscal years. As I go through this, I'm going to just focus on fiscal years 2024 and 2023 and comparing the two. The summary of charts is better at showing a trend over the 5-year period. Starting on the first line, the total fund balance for the general fund was $14.5 million, which was down from $16.2 in 2023. Unavailable fund balance for the general fund, consisting of restricted state statutes, inventory, prepaid, and leases, was $5.3 million, which was decreased from $7 million. Restricted, committed, and assigned fund balance was $12.75 million, down from $12.85 million, and general fund expenditures were $33.2 million, up from $30.3 million in fiscal year 23. Fund balance as a percentage of general fund expenditures was 27.78%, which was down from 30% in the previous year. Unassigned fund balance was $1.8 million, down from $3.3 in the previous year. Unassigned fund balance as a percentage of general fund expenditures, including any transfers out, was 5.4%, which was down from 11%. Revenues over and under expenditures before transfers for the general fund, a loss of 1.8 million. For other governmental funds, a gain of 70,000. For the solid waste fund, a loss of 33,000. And for the transportation fund, a gain of 15,000. For the cash versus fund balance or net position, cash in the general fund was $12.1 million, which was up from the previous year. Other governmental funds cash was $2.6 million. Solid waste had no cash on hand. Transportation was $748,000. That is compared to fund balance in the general fund of $14.5 million, fund balance in all other governmental funds of $1.6 million, net position in the solid waste of negative $113,000, and net position in transportation of $931,000. The property tax rate was 0.735, which is the same as the prior year. Collection percentage was 99.01%, up from fiscal year 2023, and collection percentage excluding motor vehicles was 98.86%, which was also increased. Total property valuation was $1,810 million. Total levy amount was $13,305,000. For a breakdown of the debt when excluding compensated absences in OPEB, governmental general obligations were $12.4 million. Governmental leases were $954,000. Governmental subscriptions were $30,000. No bond anticipation note balance. Private placement of $1.6 million, and installment purchases of $760,000. For a breakdown of the general fund revenues, in total, it was $31.3 million, the largest portion being ad valorem taxes at $13.5 million. And then for breakdown of general fund expenditures, the total was $33.2 million, the largest of which being public safety at $11 million. The next page begins our summary of charts of information. So it's the same information that was presented in the 5-year breakdown, but in a graphical form. The total fund balance did decrease from fiscal year 2023, but it is still higher than 2020 and 21. Restricted, committed, and assigned fund balance also decreased slightly, but it is higher than the first 3 years presented. As an analysis of fund balance available, it dropped to 27.78%, which is trailing the group weighted average of 50.67%. An analysis of unassigned fund balance as a percentage of general fund expenditures. The percentage was 5.46%, which was down from the previous fiscal year and down from the high of 29.04% in 2022. As an analysis of over and under expenditures before considering transfers, there was a loss in the general fund, the transportation, and the solid waste. For the analysis of cash and fund balance at June 30th, 2024, the largest portion of cash is made up in the general fund, as well as the largest portion of fund balance. Page 13, please. Caswell County's property tax rate was 0.735, which has been consistent over the previous 5 fiscal years. This is higher than the group weighted average of 0.607. Collection percentage, Caswell County was at 99.01%, which was increased from the previous year and also higher than the group weighted average of 97.96%. For the debt analysis, as mentioned, the general obligation bonds are $12.4 million, which is the largest portion, followed by the private placement of $1.6 million. In terms of breakdown of general fund revenues, the largest of which is ad valorem taxes at 43.3%, followed by other taxes, licenses, and permits at 26.1%, and then intergovernmental revenues at 15.29%. And then for a breakdown of general fund expenditures, the largest portion of general fund expenditures is public safety at 33.25%, followed by human services at 25.25%, and then general government at 16.94%. And that concludes the presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wiseman. Questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I do have a question. The general fund expenditures were percentage-wise much less than the consensus or the statewide average. Is that how that's computed? Is all the counties in the state an average of those compared to us?
Yes, sir. Are you referring to the chart on page 10?
Yes, I am. It's, I think the average is 50.67.
Yes, sir.
We're 27.78%.
So that is reflecting fund balance available to cover expenditures. So a higher percentage is desirable. Essentially, what that's saying is that the fund balance average for the group is able to cover about 50.67% of expenditures. For Caswell County, it's 27.78%.
Okay, that was my question. The group being the 100 counties average, is that how that's arrived at?
It is not all 100 counties. They actually break it down into specific groups that Caswell County would fall in. It's supposed to group Caswell County with counties in a similar situation. But they also did change how they did the groupings. And so there's not as much consistency when you're comparing the 5 years because of that shift in how they grouped it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. White, you gave us a lot of numbers and a lot of facts for the last few minutes. What I want to know is, what kind of financial shape is the county in?
Watching fund balance is going to be key because fund balance as a percentage of general fund expenditures, and then I think just as importantly, unassigned fund balance as a percentage of those general fund expenditures, both did decrease from fiscal year 2023. The unassigned fund balance going to 5.46%. I'd like to see that come up. So strict monitoring of expenditures, comparing it against fund balance and how you're performing, that's going to be very key because you do not want to see your fund balance or unassigned fund balance continue to drop.
That for 24, and we took a large amount out of fund balance, I believe, to balance the budget so there would be no tax increase, if I'm thinking right. Somebody help me out. Should be in here somewhere. But I know fund balance went down like $1.8 million.
Yes, sir. From 16.2 to 14.5, so about 1.7.
Okay, but yeah, that when we did the budget ordinance to avoid a tax increase, the board voted to pull a large amount out of fund balance for 24. Yeah. 24 is what we're looking at tonight, aren't we? We pulled a large amount out in 24, correct? The budget we're in, that we just finished. That's the one I'm thinking about is 25. You're right.
Mhm.
And we don't even have our results yet.
So, but let me explain how that impacts.
Yes, absolutely.
So part of the fund balance, the total, there is a amount that is committed for the subsequent year's expenditures. So when the county budgeted a large amount of fund balance in 25, that is a restriction and impacts the unassigned. So a lot of why the unassigned has dropped so much is because of the appropriated fund balance in 25. As well as there were some large receivables at the end of 24, which the state also requires that be restricted. So that reduces the unassigned as well. And we can, I wrote myself a note. I really need to go in and look at the 2024 fund balance components compared to the 23 fund balance components. Because if the other components of fund balance go up, there's restrictions, commitments, and designations. If those go up, your fund balance could stay the same in total from a dollar standpoint, but your unassigned could still decrease. So that large amount appropriated in 25 is actually impacting 24's unassigned.
To add to that too, I believe that's also one of the financial performance indicators of concern is that you've appropriated fund balance in fiscal year 2025 while having a decrease in fund balance for fiscal year 2024. So that would be a financial performance indicator of concern.
And I know, Ms. Sharp, you probably don't have his number off the top of your head. I don't know if Kevin does or not. We just finished, we're in fiscal 26.
Yes, sir,
Correct.
we are.
Okay. So fiscal 25, no. Fiscal 26, how much did we dip into fund balance compared to 25?
I do believe it was less, but we still have to finish the 25 audit to determine how much of that fund balance was actually used. So you're still kind of that year behind that. The 25 fund balance will then be impacted by what you budgeted for fund balance in 26.
I'm glad y'all have to do the numbers, not me.
So we'll need to wait until we finalize 25 to see. There was a good bit of fund balance appropriated for 25.
Yeah.
And so we just need to look and see, did we use as much as planned? And we should have those preliminary numbers mid-January.
Ms. Rush.
Ms. Sharp, I guess I'll try to let you answer this question because I don't know if he can. And I guess the reason I'm gonna ask it is when we started this process, the audit findings we got for like 22, 23, it had the issues basically stating the audit findings and the issues that they had. And what I was hearing from the auditors and everybody was, is this one along these issues were gonna kind of correct themselves as from 22 to 23 to 24. I just look at this right here and I see a lot on this page number 3. And I'm trying to figure out what has taken place or what has changed to correct this stuff that they're finding, and with those measures being taken to correct from 23 to 24.
You will see the improvements in 25. Because if you think about it, we're almost in 26 and we're just finishing the 24 audit. So, but what we've been doing since, what year are we in? Since 23 is, as we found the problems, the issues, we started fixing them really in 25. Because we were just getting the audits, started getting them caught up in 23 and 24. So we really didn't have time to impact 24. So we were not surprised that all of these findings reoccurred because most of the corrections and the process change and the revampment has happened in 25.
And I see the gentleman shaking his head, yes. And I guess the only reason I'm saying, when I saw this, it felt like to me that this was new stuff that was happening instead of, oh, maybe you can elaborate.
I don't think that it's necessarily going to be anything new that's happening. There would potentially be things that come to light as we're doing our testing that we would say, okay, we see that in our testing this year and we need to mention of it. But at the same time, to what Ms. Sharp is saying, once that time has passed, say that you're past June 30th, 2024, it's pretty much set in stone. What we're doing in the testing, it's all going to be applicable until finance has a chance to catch up. So I do think that you're going to start to see the processes improve for fiscal year 2025. That's not to say that it will totally wipe out every financial statement finding or performance indicator of concern, but I do think that you're going to see a weaning down of that. And then I think really the best year is going to be fiscal year 2026. That's when you've got your feet under you. Especially by that point, we would hope that the county is going to be caught up in terms of the audit. So that's when you would hope to see, okay, now we can start being proactive and starting to try to address these issues instead of reactive, and we're always trying to catch up while at the same time taking responsibility for our daily duties as well.
And Commissioner Rose, if you look toward the very back of your financial statements, there's a section on compliance, which has a lot more detail on the findings, but it also has the county's response and their corrective action plan. And several of the findings have been resolved and were resolved before the audit.
Yes.
This audit was completed. So it might give you some comfort to go look at what's called the corrective action plan. It's in the back, and that will show you many of the findings because there's an expected time frame for completion, and some of them were completed back in the spring. So it's, as soon as we were made aware of a lot of these, we went ahead and did the fixes as soon as the auditors were bringing them to our attention in 23. So we went ahead and fixed them in 25, but that didn't help the 24.
Right. I guess it would have been a lot easier if in quotations marks or somewhere that issue of fact finding would have said this was corrected, whatever.
Yeah.
Because it makes it look like it's a tremendous amount.
Yeah. So, but you'll see in there that there's been a lot of progress made on clearing up some of those items.
And that starts on page 118.
Thank you.
118. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Light.
In the name of corrective actions and findings, shouldn't the findings be listed individually on page 144 of the financial report?
144. The summary of schedule for prior audit findings, that would cover the previous year's audit findings, but essentially you're saying if it's either a repeat as a finding for the current year or if it's an item that's been addressed. So for example, finding 2023-3, we note that it has been corrected. So we don't show it as a finding for fiscal year 24.
So without these findings being individually listed.
They are. You have to go back a few pages.
They start on 118, on
Okay.
page 118.
And there's a lot of detail on the finding and then detail on the corrective action.
Okay.
They do an excellent job, really kind of articulating what the real finding was, and that helps us be more specific in how we address them going forward.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I did have a couple of things. I spent a little time with the draft this afternoon. And the things that I highlighted in my mind was the revenues looked like they were a little more than $4 million off from the previous year. So that's got to have quite a bit of impact on our bottom lines. So that was one thing. But the expenses exceeding the revenues, so it's $1,863,000. And you go down and break that up, and I found that 14 departments were overspent. I mean, that seemed to be quite a few departments. And several were pretty large numbers, being the sheriff's department was about $432,000. And EMS was $318,000, and solid waste was $103,000. So that was a little bit alarming.
Some, especially in the sheriff's department, some of that over budget is how we're budgeting leases. And that's something that we need to get corrected in 26. We're budgeting the lease payments in like a debt service department, but we're required to now, with new GASB standards, show them in the departments. So that's actually one item on, I've given Keith the to-do list, and that's one of the items is to get the 26 budget corrected for those things so that they don't continue to be differences.
Okay. Just as a suggestion, at some point in time, I don't know about the rest of the board, but I would like to have a work session with the finance department to review the numbers here and tell us where we're strong and where we need to work. And with these numbers, we understand balance sheets, but what these numbers really mean. Are we in trouble? Are we in good shape? And take an hour or so before a meeting to go over that.
And honestly, Commissioner Smith, my recommendation is wait till we have the 25 numbers. There were just so many issues in 24.
I see.
I feel like we could talk a lot, but a lot of those things have been remedied.
Okay.
So I think you'll have a much better picture if you give us about 3 months to get the 25 audit done and then really go through that in detail.
Well, that sounds encouraging.
And I'll echo that as well and say that if you were to try to do something off of the fiscal year 2024 numbers, you'd be working off of something that's now a year and a half old. And like Jonah was saying, a lot of these issues have already been resolved. We don't wait till the end of the audit to notify finance staff. If we become aware of an item, we communicate it to them right away. But even if they take steps at that time to resolve the issue, it would still be a finding because we're evaluating it from the year that it happened.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Sharp, can I hold you to that 3 months?
We're going to try. We're going to try. We've got a good plan. We've been working on it. We met today on it. So I think having an extra set of hands is going to be very helpful.
All right. All right. No other questions? Thank y'all. Do I have a motion that we approve the audit report?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Rose.
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Smith. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of accepting the audit report, let it be known by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries. All right, moving on down. Mr. Whitaker, purchasing policy, emergency purchases.
So the county has had a emergency purchases policy historically. And what we discovered recently, and it's when I mentioned the detention center boiler, when that failed, realized when we were trying to deal with that situation that we no longer had a emergency purchasing policy. And I think what happened there was the county adopted a new purchasing policy back last January, and that was a very different document instead of just a revision to the last one. And somewhere in that process, maybe because of where that document that got adopted originated, perhaps emergency purchases was memorialized somewhere in another document. So bottom line is we don't currently have one. And so this is an attempt to rectify that. So what you have in your packet is the current policy, and this is reformatted, so it may look a little different if you're keeping hard copies of what was adopted last January, but it is the same content. And the core of it, and I'll scroll through it quickly, just a minor change here in this table. as a reference to emergency purchases if you adopt this. And the core of what we're proposing can be found if you'll use page up in the corner there, begins at the bottom of page 24 in the upper right-hand corner. So this just starts by defining what emergency purchase is. And I think our attorney is going to speak to that a little bit more after his review. So we've got definition of emergency purchase, who has the authority to make emergency purchases and that related decision making, how that is documented and reported. And then it ends with a section of consequences just to make it clear that this is an important step to take if a department head, manager, deputy manager find themselves in a situation of needing to make an emergency purchase. So I'd say there's more drafted here than I had originally planned to add, but I think it is pretty succinct and clear. And while we're looking at that, I know our attorney had a couple of suggestions, maybe if you would like to hear about that.
Go ahead, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I do think this policy is a good start. However, I would suggest a few modifications based upon the case law and the general statutes. For instance, in some of the case law, it's very strict in defining that an emergency must be present, immediate, and existing. It cannot be a situation that is merely anticipated to arise in the future. So we may want to add some language into the policy that addresses that. And there's also a requirement that as soon as possible after the emergency purchase, that the board must adopt a resolution indicating the purchase and the reasons for that purchase. So, but again, I think this is a great start, but if you will, I know it's in the board's discretion, but I'd like to make or suggest a few revisions to the county manager before this is adopted.
All right. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Wouldn't
Knight?
that be covered by an emergency meeting?
Excuse me.
Wouldn't this be covered by an emergency meeting?
I guess
Our rules of procedure.
if we could get a quorum together, go ahead, Mr. Whitaker.
So I can speak to that. So the emergency meeting, you're going to have required notice within, I believe that's 6 hours without looking at that.
Doesn't
And-
state that in our.
I'm sorry.
Doesn't state that in our rules of procedure.
So statutorily, it defines the notice requirements of an emergency meeting. And I would add, as far as my input about that, I think there are going to be times when that would not be realistic and practical. Sometimes, yes, maybe on that boiler with the detention center. When you consider kind of the authority of who can make an emergency purchase, I think you've got to consider there are times that a department head, while that wouldn't be the norm, that a department head might need to make some type of emergency purchase. It may be something after hours. It may be a decision that's needed quicker than an emergency meeting could realistically take place. Now, that certainly is an option at times, but I wouldn't recommend that being the norm.
Mr. Chair. Scott, are you recommending a limit amount or unlimited, or what's the extreme case?
This doesn't put a dollar amount on that. It just really tries to make it tight and concise as to the timing of when you would use such an emergency purchase policy and how you would go about actually doing that. So you certainly could put some type of limit on it.
Leave our emergency meeting states or our procedures state emergency meetings is a special meeting is called to deal with an unexpected circumstance that requires immediate consideration by the board. The notice requirements of this rule do not apply. However, the person or persons who call an emergency meeting shall take reasonable action to inform the other members and the public of the meeting. Local news media organizations who have requested notice of special meetings as provided in subsection D below shall be notified of such emergency meetings by the same method used to notify board members. Only business connected with the emergency may be discussed at the meeting. I also think emergency meetings, if they were utilized, it would be more transparency for the public.
Mr.
I know I've had two emergency meetings. But since I've been commissioner, and it was no problem. The second thing is not having a limit on it is just beyond even me comprehending how we could do that. So, I have to agree with Mr. Claggett here that emergency meetings get rid of a whole lot of transparency.
I believe one of them was the elevator.
Yep.
We still call it the new courthouse. It's been there for a long time. We still call it, maybe that was one of them. I don't recall the other one. The only drawback I see to having an emergency meeting was, and I'll just pull a rabbit out of the hat. If a heating system went down tonight at the sheriff department in the jail, 10 o'clock tonight, and they had to get somebody in there to fix it, they show up and it's going to be X amount of dollars. I don't see me calling the board at midnight and say, hey, we got to go have an emergency meeting. Otherwise, I think there's time that y'all are exactly right, but there are circumstances when that's just not going to work. I think it would be the extreme when it wouldn't work, but 90% of the time, I think emergency meeting would.
I think that was exactly my point. There are times for emergency meetings. There are times when I can almost promise you that would not happen. If I tried to round up a quorum of you in the middle of the night, I believe that would be quite the challenge.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Manager, I guess one issue I kind of looking over this thing and I'd like to take a strong, hard look at is under B, the authority to make an emergency purchase relating to the decision-making. I think it needs to be limited down to like one or two people. When you get into department heads, you know, because it states right here, it says if neither the county manager or deputy county manager is available within a reasonable period of time, a department head or his designee, when the department head is unavailable, may authorize an emergency purchase. I think we're going down a whole different route with that. I think you're getting too many people in the picture that can make that decision. And just like what we're finishing up with, I think it needs to be limited either to the county manager or the deputy county manager.
I originally went into drafting this with that same thought in mind, and I meant to bring the older policy up, and it's downstairs on my desk. But I believe that policy also included department heads, and our deputy manager recalls the older policy without me trying to dig that out. Do you remember for sure?
I am thinking that it did say that if the manager was not available and, you know, if it's an emergency, that the department head, I think that is some of the verbiage from that policy.
And I'm almost positive that policy did not have any specific dollar amount, which is
I recall.
why I didn't go that route. But I know our finance officer also looked at this policy very closely and drafted part of this. So, Keith, do you recall a dollar limit in that at all?
I do not. I don't recall dollar limit.
So we were trying to mirror close to what the policy was before. That's certainly at your discretion to change that. But what really, when I was further drafting this policy, what really made me think about department heads in a pinch, if you will, is just really thinking through the part back up in Section A where we're talking about restricting any emergency purchase to a situation where health or safety of the public comes in play, or county employees or facilities, equipment, or property. And, again, that's at your discretion, but I could foresee there being a rare occasion where those come into play.
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm reading over here, if it jeopardizes the health, the safety, the public, safety, county employee, that in my opinion should be something either one of y'all two should have been notified about.
And keep in mind, when the previous policy was written and had the department heads included, you didn't have a deputy county manager. You only had a county manager. So that may have been why it was, originally written that way, because that is an older policy and you didn't have someone else, a deputy county manager.
Yeah, I mean, just by reading it, I mean, when it says, in a reasonable amount of time, well, my time and the chairman's time or Mr. Holt's, it could be totally different. And I just think you're gonna get into this issue of things getting approved and nobody finding out about it to the last minute. And that's just my opinion on subsection B. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Scott, I can't think of many cases where we would have to order something overnight that's going to exceed $25,000. I mean, because number one, you're not going to be able to get a price immediately. Number two, it's a lead time. So I'm not trying to shoot your policy down. I'm just saying we need to think about it from every angle. Would it be a possibility that you could say exceed $25,000 that you could issue a not to exceed purchase order? And then changes over that would be handled with change orders.
And we can tweak this however the board sees fit. That detention center boiler was the example that brought this to light for me, because that was almost 50,000 and it needed to be dealt with immediately. And a board meeting, while it's possible we could have called an emergency meeting for that. Otherwise, the approach that I took in the lack of a policy was contacting you, letting you know what was happening.
Yeah, I think we need to give you some flexibility to do your job. At the same time, we want to maintain some type of control. Bottom line.
What if the policy read that either, as far as consulting with the board, either the manager or the deputy manager would make every effort to contact members of the board to try to obtain a quorum for an emergency meeting? I don't know. You and the attorney are gonna have to massage it a little bit and get the verbiage right. But I think what I'm hearing from the board is the board wants to be involved if at all possible.
Okay.
And I know that there will be times that you won't be able to get in touch with you won't be able to get a quorum, or it'll be at such an hour of the night that, you ain't gonna wake all of us up, for lack of a better way to put it.
So with our attorney providing a couple of suggestions that we'll bring back in the next draft, is there anything that you can agree to as a group that you would like to change. So when I bring it back, it's closer. Like for instance, Commissioner Rose, you had suggested maybe, or you're not comfortable with item B2 about department heads. If you collectively feel that way, we can tweak it and have it on a little closer condition to what you'd like to consider.
I mean, if it's an emergency, if it's something like the water heater down there, the boiler that went out, I mean, somebody, department head should be notifying the manager, this is a problem, because if that couldn't have gotten fixed, then we would have to make arrangements to move those inmates somewhere until it could have been addressed. So I feel like the purchasing or the okaying of that amount, I think it should fall with either the manager or the deputy manager and the board. That's my opinion.
I agree.
I have some. If we were going to go with the county manager and the deputy county manager in this decision making, then why wouldn't we probably add the chair and the vice chair if it comes down to a,
Because that's what I'm going to do if it comes my way. I'm going to
Yeah.
reach out to the chair and the vice chair to be sure to.
I mean, yes.
So it would be like county manager, deputy county manager, chair, vice chair would be the chain of command, so to speak. Is that what you're thinking, Mr. Greenwood?
It is.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to go along with Tony on the amount. I think 25,000 would be a gracious splitting.
All right. You got all those notes, gentlemen, ladies? Okay, all right. Any other discussion on this item? We're passing it back to them. All right. Item 9, budget amendment number 14, youth volleyball equipment. Mr. Whitaker.
So this number 14 has to do with $20,000 grant revenue and expenditures for youth football equipment. No county match is required. And this grant is from North Carolina Amateur Sports. Just awarded Parks and Rec $20,000 to support youth football program. And so congratulations to them on that. It's part of a statewide program to fund youth sports equipment. As I kind of looked at the history of this, it seems like this is not the first time y'all have talked about doing more for youth football. So that was a good win. And because this grant operates on a 1-year calendar-based timeline from the date of funding, NCAS expects the full 20,000 grant to be spent within 1 year of receipt. And that's why I'll bring it to you this evening. If you approve this this evening, Parks and Rec's prepared to place the order for that equipment to make sure that we get this in by year end, and be glad to answer any questions. What I included in the packet for you was the actual budget amendment itself, and also some of the questions that were part of that and answers that were part of that application process.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Go ahead. Mr. Manager, you said this was no matching from the county's part, correct?
Right.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna make a motion to accept the $20,000 from the North Carolina Amateur Sport Youth Football Grant and approve budget amendment number 14 as presented to support the purchase of the football equipment and authorize the staff to proceed with eligible purchase and required grant reporting.
Have a motion from Commissioner Rose that we accept the grant. A second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Ingram. Now, discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
that those funds are for any type of equipment,
For youth football, and
or
I
is it
would,
just for football?
youth football. So if you look on the screen, this is a part of itemized breakdown, was a part of the application process. So you see helmets, pads, jerseys, pants, balls, mouth guards, field supplies. So very specific to football.
Any more discussion?
Do we have a youth football program now?
My understanding that this is really to expand what we have, and I can't answer exactly what that looks like right now. Unless is Randy, I'm sorry, our Parks and Rec director's here. Can you speak to that?
Do we have a youth football program now?
No, we have
Flag.
but this is gonna be tactical. It's gonna be development, so they have something going to the high school. At least it hit somebody or touch somebody or physical football. All we have is flag right now, there's nothing else.
So what kind of funds would be expected to get the program going? I see you getting equipment, but what kind of funds would you need to get this program going besides this equipment?
That's covered, like, the reason I spin it up to this point is because, you don't buy a boat before fishing season, you don't buy football, it's twice a month. Now that I've waited, it's a lot cheaper now, so I can get more equipment, but that's on this screen. I can get totally everything to start this program with. It's gonna be in-house, it's just gonna be, pretty much just a fundamental learning these kids how to play football, so they'll have something to make it in middle school. At least some experience. So any other fun time, maybe, get to start, but really even to maintain. If I can get that, it's pretty self-sufficient.
Any other questions? Comments? All right, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving budget amendment number 14 for the youth football grant, let it be known by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, volleyball net system grant, Mr. Whitaker.
So Parks and Rec is on a roll. This is a brand new grant for 15,600 specifically for a volleyball net system. And was just awarded this, received the award letter December the 9th from the Community Foundation of the Dan River region. That award letter is in your packet, and it's clear that it's to purchase and install a volleyball net system for youth volleyball. And that organization really needs acceptance by, I believe it's January the 2nd. And that is by way of a performance grant agreement that would be signed by the board chair and returned by January 2nd. And also in relation to that, Parks and Rec staff have been invited to attend a grant reception in Danville, January the 7th. And that's when the check would be presented. And those grant funds would be released after this signed agreement's received. And what you have in the packet besides the letter is the actual budget amendment itself, a statement of need, which was part of the background of how this came about. And I'm sorry, the budget amendment's not there because we're not ready for that. What we're looking for is really just acceptance of this grant. So we can move forward. If the board chooses to accept it, they will forward a performance grant agreement for the board chair to sign.
Any questions? What's the pleasure of the board on this?
And this is similar to that. There's no match required.
I make a motion that we accept the $15,600 grant from the Foundation for the Volleyball Net System.
I have a motion from Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second from Commissioner Todd. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
one thing I would say, I would like to commend our director for going after some of these grants. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Todd.
I just had a question. Do we know what happened with the tennis courts while we on the Parks and Recs? I know I just got here as a county commissioner, but what happened with the tennis courts?
So I'll start and our Parks Director can add to it. We brought that issue to you just a few months back, the condition of the courts. And we have received some proposals for that. Of course, they're pretty substantial. What we're targeting is companies that truly do tennis courts, because there's a lot of leveling. Drainage is a really big deal. That's part of our problems right now. And the cracks are really too large to repair on the way we've been repairing them. But our Parks and Rec Director have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, they need totally redone. This is the end of the story. They're beyond repairs. Just need totally redone. Well, 50 years and get out of school, rains, crack, expand. It needs a total redo. I'll get Scott some quotes for that. So it's just where we at this point. It's just time. It's just time to replace it.
And,
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree, but have we gotten any quotes for it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, all those in favor of approving the $15,600 grant from the Community Foundation of Dan River for the volleyball net system, let it be known by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 11, economic development needs, Pelham Business Park. Mr. Bowman and Mr. Whitaker.
So at least for the last several months, when we talk about economic development, we talk about our Pelham Business Park. And a lot of that work in recent months has been handled by Mr. Ken Bowman, that's coming up to the podium, and we're going to share this conversation. But you know, one of the things that we have been talking about a lot the last few months since he's been on board is that we're in a place where even though we really want to promote the Pelham Park, we don't really have what we need to do that yet, meaning we don't have a site plan. We don't have some of the key components that are necessary to provide that and provide information of that the way potential developers are used to receiving that information. And so along with conversations with the planning department, we've talked about how to better define that in terms of a site plan. We have talked with some of you individually about clarity of where that permanent easement and access is into the park in relation to what is remaining. And even one of the things that I have noticed since we've been here is we don't really even have a consistent name. We have been using the term Pelham Business Park, Pelham Industrial Park interchangeably. They're not quite the same things. We really need to settle on that, define that, and they have different meanings for developers. And We've also talked recently about potential Golden Leaf grant, that due diligence that we've been talking about. And there are sources of assistance to help us get past this hurdle of not having what we need to market. And that's part of what we want to talk to you about tonight. And I have mentioned some of those along the ways. Mr. Bowman has mentioned some of those. For instance, Dewberry, Skip Green and Associates. He's a grant writer that worked on Caswell and a Golden Leaf project that helped finance and the design and construction of the park's elevated storage tank. And there's also another company that we've been looking at a proposal called Rural Resilience Advisors. And what we're really here tonight to talk to you about is the needs and get some guidance to make sure that we're not chasing proposals, economic development proposals outside of the scope of what you're expecting. And so with that said, and one last thing to that, the money that's really available, at least on the capital side, is roughly that 75,000 that was committed for economic development funds. But we just want to understand your appetite to invest in Pelham Park and to really market this. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bowman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager and Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to come up tonight and talk to you about this. We've been working this for the last couple of months, like Scott said, trying to come together with how we're going to market the Pelham Industrial Park, Commerce Park, Business Park, whatever the name is going to be. I provided him with 2 documents, and I was not prepared to bring these to you tonight because I want him to take a look at them, and I'll send him the electronic versions, and once he gets those, he'll be able to share those with you. So you'll be able to see what we're talking about. Excuse me. One of the big things that I've run into, and I've already started receiving inquiries from the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina about sites that are available, not only in Caswell, but across the state. And what we find out, and I've, like I said in earlier conversations, I've gotten the files that were here in Caswell out of the filing cabinets. I can't find anything in there that shows where we've actually tried to compete for other, companies coming to Caswell. So I'm having to generate this stuff from scratch, if you will. So I've reached out to some other folks that are in the business. They've provided me with some input. Excuse me, I apologize. But I'm going to go over some of the things here for you to think about. And these are part of the checklist items that are pretty much comprehensive across the board that North Carolina uses in order to qualify a site and take it before a prospective client to try to get them to come visit. We don't have a lot of turnaround when they start notifying us about a prospective client coming to visit. They could be coming in from overseas and maybe have 3 or 4 of these lined up within the state. They also may have 3 or 4 states lined up where they want to go visit properties. So we have to be ready for them when they come in. I'll just give you a for instance here real quick if I can get this phone to fire back up again. I just got one on Friday, and I'm just going to give you the utility requirements that they're asking for. So the ownership here is lease or purchase. The building specs they're talking about, and of course we don't have any buildings like this, but 125,000 square foot and expandable. They need access to rail if it's available. That's not a deal breaker, but they have that. They need the facility to be within 10 miles of an interstate or a four-lane highway divided, which we've got interstate. We've got 29 out here. The utilities, the water is 1,000 gallons per day. Sewer, 8,000 gallons per day. Power monthly, 1 megawatt. Estimated monthly consumption, 550,000 kilowatts. The shift schedule is 2 shifts, 7 days a week. Natural gas monthly, 700,000 cubic feet. And it says here, please remember the following. that they need to provide a detailed marketing brochure or summary of the property. Please include the name of the document on the document, the project. Have the marketing brochure January 2026, right around the corner. These things happen real fast, so we have to be prepared for it. Provide a site layout, building plan, layout, or floor plan if possible. So that's just on the latest site request, and that came in Friday from Raleigh. So if you're trying to put this together over the weekend, you'll never do it. And at best, the only thing you can get are guesses because you just really don't have what they need. And so they're just going to look beyond you. They're going to move on to something else or some other area that's more prepared. So some of the things we can do to get ahead of this is we can go through this checklist that I've put together. You can go through the checklist. We do things like ownership, control, and governance. We know who owns the property. So we can do that pretty easy. We can check the records here in the county and make sure we don't have anything going back years. We do title searches and all that. Further, you don't have somebody that owned the property back when, and they forgot that there was an heir to that property, and they forgot to include them in the transaction when you purchased it. And it becomes a problem when you start marketing the property. So we make sure we've got ownership, control, and governance taken care of. The land characteristics, we look at total acreage and lot sizes. So as Scott mentioned there, we need to have an engineer come in. We need to start looking at the property that we have left there, find a common entrance, and then start subdividing that acreage that you've got into a desirable size that we can market. We make sure everything floodplain status is mapped and confirmed, all of those things that have to do with that property. We do the environmental due diligence, all our phase 1, phase 2 studies, we do those. Zoning, entitlements, and local control, we make sure the zoning is correct if it does apply to any of this property. Utilities, again, we go right back to it. We need to know what the water is, what the line size is, pressure, redundancy if we need it. Sewer, we need to know if public sewer is available. Treatment capacity and lift station requirements, if there are any that need to be done. Electric utility engaged early. We need to make sure whoever's providing our power, that when we have these companies that are looking for these huge power consumptions, that they come online and we talk to them and make sure they can provide that power. We don't want something that is a deal breaker and we find out that they can't provide the power that's needed by the company. Natural gas, we want to make sure if that's available, if the capacity is there. Broadband, a big deal. We take it for granted, but fiber is a necessity now. We want to make sure that they have fiber or something very, very close to that at that site. Transportation and access, legal access to the public roadways, truck access approved by county and DOT. Again, it goes to the entrance into the park. We want to make sure that those vehicles that are traversing, that are coming in and coming out of Route 700 over there, or any other property that the county wishes to purchase and develop, that you have enough space there to move those tractor trailers in and out without any problem. Infrastructure and site improvements, county-funded infrastructure installed in programs, site grading or certified pads available. And we've talked about that because right now Cherokee is already in the process, and I've seen the videos. I was down there a week and a half ago. They had the pad done. Now they're putting the steel up. So we know that's taking place, and it's looking like it's moving forward at a pretty good pace now. But site grading or certified pads, we want to make sure the internal road network is planned. And again, it goes back to the engineering piece and making sure we have that property there laid out and at least have some rough cut roadways in there. Permitting and development process, we need to make sure that the permitting checklist, we have that checked and we run it through our planning department, and everything that's needed there is available there. Expedited priority. A lot of these folks that come in here, they assume that you've done everything up front. So they're on a short timeline. They want to make sure that they can get where they need to be when they say they can. And we don't want this to be something that stops them. Incentives and public financing, any local incentives approved by the governing body, state incentives, eligibility confirmed. Any infrastructure that's a cost sharing, we need to make sure that's in writing. And one of the last items on here that's really critical is your workforce and community readiness. We're in an area where there's a lot of business and there's a lot of industry and a lot of manufacturing. And the labor shed here and when you look at the numbers, is very good, but most of the people are working somewhere. And so there's really not a lot to draw from if you look at the numbers. The people that are wanting to work and can work are working. Unfortunately, you just saw, I think, in Danville, where you had Aero Farms up there make an announcement where they're getting ready to close. It's not a good thing because a good friend of mine is working there. It's 173 people losing their job at the end of this week. But we want to make sure that the workforce assets are identified, community college and training partners are brought on board quickly. If we need to set up some kind of training program with the community colleges, and that's what I love about community colleges, they can pretty much set up a training program on the fly as you need it. So it's not like going to a four-year college where they have set curriculums. They can actually create these programs for the company or the business that they need. Make sure that letters of community support are available, elected officials aligned and briefed. Everybody needs to be on board with what's going to take place with this. Marketing and site selection readiness. It goes to what Scott said briefly. Park name and brand. So we need to make sure we're calling it whatever we want to call it. Let's just stick with it, whatever it is, whether it's industrial park, whether it's commerce park or business park. Pick one and stay with it because that's going to go on our marketing literature. Professional site maps and lot layouts, utility maps prepared and are current. If we've got access to a drone, have a drone fly it, have them take some pictures. We can put those on the website and we can also send them to the EDPNC. They'll be glad to publish that stuff for us. They'll put it up on their website. County branded fact sheet completed, listing on state and regional economic development platforms. Doing the due diligence packet. So we need to make sure that the surveys are done, environmental reports are done, utility capacity, letters, zoning and ordinance, incentive surveys, sample development timeline, and the county contact list. This is about as comprehensive as it gets when you start working with economic development. And when you go over this list here, it almost sounds like the audit that you just heard because it's a daunting task to pull all of this information together and put it in a format where you can actually launch it out and let somebody see it at a moment's notice. All we have to do is change the name of the project. So this stuff here we have to put in place. I've been talking with Jason quite a bit. We've spent a lot of time together going through the infrastructure piece and what needs to be done as far as the planning and that stuff that's in his ballpark, which a lot of this is. We want to make sure that we cover that ground and make it something that's, we can put together and get it out there if we want to compete for any of these jobs. We want to make sure that we're at least in the pile, but right now we're not. We're not in there. We're not even being considered for any of these. So with that being said, again, I'm working with Scott to pull some of this stuff together for you. We just need to know how far you want to go with it. This right here, I can do in-house. I'm not worried about this, but there are some things that we don't have the degrees to do. And that's the engineering piece. And it's to go out there and do those site surveys. Let's go out there and do some of the core samplings that they have to do on these properties to make sure if you're going to build something, the soil can withstand that weight that's there. And I understand out there, just going out there, there's a lot of rock out there right now. So I think it's pretty solid ground you've got out there. But I'll be glad to answer any questions from any of the board members that you have, and then turn it back to Scott.
Questions? Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. Who called me?
Ken, it sounds good to me,
Yep.
and I know it's it's a large plan, comprehensive plan with marketing and site selection. It's doable if we, bite one toe off the elephant. So basically, what do you see, County Commission, what do you see as the first step? I'm thinking marketing, but I know before we can market, we've got to have some things in place along with the planning board. Mr. Watlington back there. So what do you need?
The marketing is the last thing you do,
Right.
in my opinion. It's the last thing you do when you've got everything else in place. And so the first thing we want to do is make sure the property that we have out there under our control is developed properly. It doesn't have to be, and they call it shovel ready. That's a term they use. It doesn't have to be necessarily shovel ready, but you have to have it to a point to where you can actually show the property. So if somebody comes in and let's say they're on a tour with EDP&C throughout the state and they want to go see something in Rockingham or they want to go to Chatham and then they go, okay, Caswell's got something too. These folks have only got a couple of 3 days maybe where they're going to do this real quick tour. And so when they come, they're going to let you know that they're on the way. You'll be standing by. You'll have all your information there to kind of supplement, and you'll be able to show the property. What you want to do is have the site already graded out, rough graded. It doesn't have to be shovel ready, but rough graded so they can stand there and see what it would look like. So they can envision what their building will look like on that piece of property. And what I've always done in the past is have some type of a rendering. Doesn't have to be the finite thing, but take a piece of property and put a 50,000 square foot rendering building on it. It doesn't cost you anything. And you can show them. You can say, here's lot A, it's 10 acres, and here's what it would look like with a 50,000 square foot building sitting on it. And then they can visualize what you're talking about. But if you've just got raw land out there and you're trying to talk to them, what you tell them is not probably what they're thinking. And so you need to take and move that forward, so they can help, or they'll be able to visualize.
Right, visualization. I was going to say that visualization helps.
Yeah.
One quick thing. So you said site requests came in from Raleigh.
Yes.
I didn't quite.
It's from the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. That is the premier. Those are the folks there. That's led by Chris Chung. He's the CEO and executive director for that program. And it's his team that he's put together. They're the ones that are business professionals that go out and recruit.
Like an advisory?
No, well, there's more than advisory. They're attend a lot of these site selector conferences. So they're bringing business to North Carolina. And so when these clients come in or call to come in, what they want to have is all of these packets, if you will, from all the different counties, localities in hand, and they want to be able to share them with them.
Gotcha.
So it's critical to have your information there and ready to go, because if you don't have it, then you don't even get considered for anything.
So we've thrown a lot of information at you, but just to really boil that down, those who are looking at counties and sites within North Carolina to develop, they are looking for nimbleness, and we're nowhere close to being nimble. We're nowhere close to being able to provide a data sheet or just a very clear concept that defines boundaries, that defines some big picture things like likely unbuildable areas as determined by engineers. We just don't have some of the core components to be able to be nimble, and we're not suggesting what we've talked about a lot in terms of down the road, you would want individual data sheets for every site that we have to offer when we're approached by outside developers. But because your focus has largely been to staff and to Mr. Bowman, the Pelham site, we thought that would be a good place to start, especially with the due diligence that we've been talking about since back in the time of the budget. So what we're really asking is for your blessing and any input to get a core engineered plan and to bring forward a proposal or maybe more than one for your consideration. We just don't want to go down that road without your blessing and any other input.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to start out with a vision. You know, what's our vision? What are we going after? Because Castle County is not going to be right for a lot of industry. I mean, we don't have gas right now, so we got to be realistic as what we have. What we can market without a lot of money. But let's come up with, let's say, okay, we're going after a shell building, for example. Okay, then maybe we come up with a rendering. Yes, everybody agree on where that building needs to be on that site plan. And then we go after the due diligence money. I think we've got some money set aside already. And I think we'd have to put that with some more money with Golden Leaf if we're successful. Now, what's it going to cost to apply for that grant? Is it that money we need to talk about? Is that, you know, it just doesn't happen without some seed money going in. But once we get to due diligence, then we can start asking for a site plan, a site grading plan, like $500,000 is what they have available. Okay, we've got the site plan now, then we've got money for the grading. Go ahead and prepare the pad. And then we look for an independent contractor, whoever, wherever, that wants to come in and make some money on that site. He wins and we win. I think that's what we need to do, is start with a vision.
And I'll give you a quick example of why I think that's really important is, so recently we got a question from a North Carolina rail company that was asking for our sites for their plan that they put forward for developers to consider, and they wanted to know what sites we have available. And I was trying to start on the spreadsheet. There was a lot of questions that I didn't have clearly answered right in front of me about Pelham, but here's an example. So, you know, Pelham here, and the question, and keep in mind this was a North Carolina rail company, and the question was, does it have rail available? Well, not directly to the site, but wow, is that close? And I think an engineer in the right vision and plan might figure out a creative way to make this a selling point, even though it's across the road from it. It's still within striking distance, and I think we need some assistance to develop that vision with some engineered professional help.
Any other questions come in? How much are we looking at applying for from Gold Leaf? Was it 50,000? 50
Initially, yes, sir.
initial, yeah.
Mhm. And I think we had to put $21,000 with that to do the due diligence. And I'm not really sure what all the due diligence will give us. Will they give us geotechnical information, or give us a site plan, or what will we expect to get out of that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Commissioner Smith, I'll be glad to address that. So Originally, there was a quote from David Ross with Dewberry, and their quote was $71,850, which encompassed an environmental site assessment, a preliminary wetland and stream determination, threatened and endangered species report, initial historical, archaeological, and cultural resource review, a boundary survey, and the geotech report that you alluded to. Also, a buildable area summary map and an existing utilities location map. And it's my understanding there's Golden Leaf grant money out there in the amount of $50,000. And the remaining due diligence part was $21,850.
Which I think we budgeted for last year.
Yes, sir.
And I think that gives us a green light to apply for $500,000 of pipe work that we can put in roads, we can build pads, we can decide what we're going after.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. You said that included a boundary survey.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Rose.
Does that include a survey for tracks, like different specific location sites?
It's my understanding the boundary survey would just clearly mark and delineate the outward boundary of the entire existing track.
Well, I mean, I think that's one thing we're gonna have to look at is how we're gonna market that property. I mean, we're gonna have some type of survey going in and saying, well, here's track 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, it gives the dimensions of that track, the depth, the width, how many acres is on it, to be able to sell it. I mean, just looking at that right there, it's gonna be kind of hard to sell something just looking at that. But if you had a road going into this property and you had, let's say you had access road going into a cul-de-sac, but you had 8 pieces of 8 site locations that have already been surveyed off. I mean, that's in my opinion is one of the first things it's going to take.
And that boundary survey defines our property outer boundaries, but then that's where you need that engineering assistance to propose what is a buildable lot with all the conditions that that would fit that site specifically, because as we've mentioned, and as you know, there's a fair amount of rock out there. I'm left for an engineer to delineate what they feel is unbuildable, so we have clarity of where we can propose lots internal to those defined boundaries that would result from this.
If I may, one of the nice things about taking a property like this and breaking it up into pieces, maybe you get 5 nice lots out of it. Excuse me. Remember, those boundary lines, you can just erase those until you sell that property.
Right.
You can move those boundary lines anywhere you want to. So any client coming in there, what they want to do is make sure that the perimeter boundaries are good to go. And you could say, how many acres do you need? 15 acres. Okay. You go in there and figure out where the 15 acres are. So instead of getting 5 5-acre plots, if you will, then you're only getting 2 because he's going to eat up 3 of those. And so don't get hung up on the boundary lines except for the perimeter boundary line of the entire piece of property. We can make those things look good on a piece of paper. We can say, here are the properties that we have, and then figure out when the company comes calling, and if they're serious about it, how much real acreage they do need. So we can move those boundary lines internally.
And I believe that was played out a good example with Cherokee Tobacco. I believe from that process, that their original request, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was somewhere around 7 acres that grew to around 12 acres in the final site. And that speaks to that flexibility that's needed within that clearly defined boundary.
And I hadn't been on the property, but I'm assuming that if this property is like the rest of Caswell County, there will be a certain percentage of it that just will not be developable. Am I correct, Mr. Bowman?
Absolutely
Yes.
correct.
We can find out, we can pay to have that boundary survey done, but until that engineer gets out there and he does his thing looking, saying, yeah, you can use these 10 acres, but these 3 over here is a no-go.
That's
And
correct.
we won't know that until all this is done.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
it's my hopes that, if it will be, I would look at just duplicating what you've already got. With Cherokee, you could go right next to them and you could have a 10 acre, 8 acre lot, whatever, 40,000, 50,000 square feet. With state approval, you could have road entrance from 700 without putting in an expensive cul-de-sac. And that'd be the site that we develop, that we hope to get money to prepare a pad for. And there it is. And we've got, 10 acres there ready to go.
Mhm.
And then the remaining acreage, maybe we could split up into smaller lots with some type of cul-de-sac or road going back to the back properties.
Right. Yeah, I think that goes back to your point about having a vision on how you want to see this developed.
Right.
Is for the work session that we have in January. I know it's more or less budget related most of the time. But would we have time to work any of this in on that day?
I think very little.
Okay, so it'll be a separate time. We need to get together on this evidently.
And we're not proposing this evening to pull the trigger on any proposal. We're just wanting to know that you would like for us to bring something back to you for board consideration.
I would dare to guess that the consensus of the board would say, yeah, but I'll ask for a consensus. It ain't gonna hurt nothing to try to put something together.
Certainly.
Am I hearing any nays? All right.
Okay.
I think you have a consensus of the board to move forward. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Bowles.
you.
All right, item 12, major and minor subdivision amendments. Mr. Wallington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for having me back. I guess, Mr. Manager, take it from here.
I'd be glad to just set it up quickly for you. At the last meeting, the gist of the board's direction was not quite ready, at least in the format that that the planning board recommended it to you. You had some good discussion, and I believe it would be appropriate if you gave the planning board a bit of direction, because they've spent a lot of time bringing this proposal for subdivision changes to you. And so we wanted to answer any questions that you might have if you're considering possibly remanding that back to the planning board.
All right. You got anything you want to add before we throw something at you, Jason?
No, sir. No, sir. I think of everything I spoke about last meeting was per the planning board's wishes. As Mr. Whitaker said, per statute, and per ordinance, we have to have a yes, no, or return for further discussion with the board.
All right, gentlemen. I'll open it up if it's all right with y'all. And I appreciate the planning board's efforts on some updates to minor and major subdivisions. But I really have an issue with that road frontage at 75 feet. And I know I discussed this with you at the last meeting.
Correct.
That if you want to decrease your density, you can increase that road frontage to 150, 200 feet, and you will decrease that density substantially compared to 75 feet.
Yes, sir.
Another item that I have an issue with on a major subdivision could be up to 14 lots off of the state maintained road before paving would be required. Am I correct?
Correct. Currently, we are at 9 lots on a private road without it being paved. Anything over 9, the road has to become paved. can still be a private road. However, it will have to be paved. We were proposing to increase that number of lots allowed on a private road to 15 prior to paving. So as if someone wanted to create 16 lots, at that point, it would have to be paved.
And that presentation's on the screen if y'all want to reference it.
Right. But that, to me, Jason, that is a lot of traffic on a gravel road. And it's not like not likely to be a 2-mile gravel road either. If it's a development, a developer's gonna put them as close as the county will allow him to put them. So you got a lot of traffic on a short span of gravel road. I just don't like the idea of expanding it to 14. In fact, I'm not even crazy about the idea of allowing 9 before it's paved. I don't have a specific number in mind, but like a traffic is going to be an issue.
Right. Most of the roads that, well, I think I spoke a few weeks ago. I've had one new proposed private road in the last 2 years. So everything else is existing grandfathered roads. And we are having a time with them in the county. As many as 20 to 25 homes on these private roads. And it's, they're continuing to be built on, but because they are on grandfathered lots per se, there's not a lot we can do with them as far as regulating.
One final question,
Okay.
I'll open it up to everybody else. The difference between a minor and major subdivision, other than the number of lots, is the fees. Am I right?
Pretty much.
So it's I believe you said on a major subdivision, it was a $200 fee plus
$20 per lot,
and on a minor, it was
$80
total for up to 6 lots.
Right. Correct.
If that's more or less the only difference, why are you differentiating between the two, minor and major? Why don't you just call them subdivisions?
You're correct. That's just been a past process. And, that's why some of these other counties have more to it than just the fees or how many lots. And our board is trying to insert a little more structure with a few more of those, as other counties have done.
All right, I've said my piece.
Mr. Chairman, one issue I guess I've taken is this 3-year clause.
Okay.
It kind of seems like to me it's going to be first come, first serve. So if I get mine done, then my neighbor across the road not allowed to do his for 3 years. But the biggest problem I see with it is who's going to keep up with this? It's going to be a nightmare for somebody, and I guess it's going to fall on you.
That will be me.
I think that needs to be looked at. I also think, like Chairman did, maybe revisit, look at the upfront lots, looking at making them a little bit, making them larger. Which one, if you made them larger, the value of those front lots will be worth more money because they got more road frontage. And I had a phone call today. One of citizen in my district been watching the meetings and kind of took a little bit of issue with this road going into these subdivisions. And the reason I bring that up is we've got a couple roads in this county that go into subdivisions that we've had issues of fire trucks and ambulances not being able to get in there because the roads are in such poor shape. Fire trucks are not getting smaller, they're getting bigger. So my question would be, has the planning board looked at making these roads up to state standards in the event that this road could be paved? Because if, say you got a subdivision, all of them everybody decided, well, you know, we want to get this road paved. Well, they get ready to lose some property because they're going to have to widen that road out enough to make it up to state standards. But if you made it that way on the front end, then you wouldn't have to worry about it if the state ever came in and paved it. One thing, Mr. Chairman, I would like to see is, you know, we started this steering committee up.
Right.
We kind of met and we just had one meeting, but we kind of talked about what we wanted Caswell to look like and I guess a vision for the future. I think we need to take some recommendations. I'm hoping that through this steering committee, we have some citizen input that will show up at these community meetings and give us some input of what they want to see in their area, what they want to see the county look like. Because, you know, we sit up here and we take everything that we've got and we make the best decision possible. Well, if nobody comes out to these meetings and says, well, this is what I want to see, then we have to go with what we have.
Right.
At least if we're getting input, then we can say, well, this is what we're hearing from our constituents. And I'm trying to see if there's anything else. That was the main things I had. You know, I just think we need to remand it back with some guidance and see where we go from there. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Move on down. Mr. Ingram?
I was just gonna ask about the private drive
Okay.
where we actually were trying to use I guess that would be the internal part of the property.
Right.
And it's just saying that we only can have one private drive. But what would happen if another road was to come because they wanted to actually build behind that? Because I'm thinking, wouldn't the ordinance only say one private drive?
In the past, we've been able to have in other words, are you speaking of a private road with,
Yes.
right, with a second private road off of that? Is that what you're
Yeah, so
referring?
if I'm coming off of the state maintain
Right.
to come down into the subdivision and
Right.
go in behind to get to, you know, the residence.
Are you speaking of lot 9? That's
No, I'm not in particular. I'm
Okay.
just looking
Okay.
at, say we had 4 houses and we had to use the private road coming off of the state maintain.
Mm-hmm.
And we come in behind that. And for some reason that developer decides that I want to put some more houses behind it because I can't get back on the road.
Right.
So the ordinance right now would be what is just basically showing like one private drive. So how would we
You
come
could
back?
you could have another private turn off of that.
And like I said, Commissioner Rose hit right on it. My biggest thing would actually going into the back part of the lots would be for the width of emergency vehicles when it, you know, comes to that point.
Right.
And I'm just going to throw this out there. And like I said, man, I appreciate everything that y'all doing. But to me, it seems like we are reacting to the things that's going on around us.
Right.
You know, we're in
And
a
we are.
reactionary state.
Right.
And the things that I kind of would like to see is as we move forward, we actually have to have a vision. And I heard that word before, but that was, you know, my word. I kind of like to see some vision moving forward because number one, I would still love to preserve what we have, you know, here in the county. However, I can't get upset with a developer because he's buying up someone's property. And the next thing you know, the questions are being asked, well, why did he put that on that property? It's beside mine. Well, I can't tell him what to do because like I say, right now, we don't have that, you know, that major structure. So that's kind of like I said, I'm good with the remanding it back. And y'all just do some work on it. But like I said, right now, we need to be knowing what each individual part of our county actually needs,
Right.
you know, through our citizens, because what may be going on in Prospect Hill may be something totally different than what's going on in Milton. What goes on in Pelham is, you know, something totally different. So in the grand scheme of it, we as a county should be able to set the precedent on what we want in our county, and not someone that's buying just to come to say, I can put this where I want to. We should be the one in the county to be able to put the teeth into how we want our county to move forward.
Right.
I'm good.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Lake?
I'll just like to piggyback on what Commissioner Ingram was alluding to. You know, whatever our surrounding counties will do have an impact on Caswell. It could be positive or negative, or maybe a little of both. Look at the current traffic. They've lowered the speed limit in Yanceville. And the schools are always looking for teachers. Where will they commute from? You know, housing is another thing to think about. That's all I have.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I agree with the chairman and vice chairman on a couple of issues. One being, I think we should definitely look at increasing the road frontage lot sizes as far as the frontage there, and possibly even look at allowing more road frontage lots. If you've got the right type of, you know, farm to where they've got a lot of road frontage, let's take advantage of that and wait maybe a little less than 3 years before we can do another development. But I've heard some real horror stories as far as gravel roads and subdivisions where you don't have a strong road maintenance association. I mean, you're driving through mud holes and so forth, and neighbors are pointing fingers at each other. So, you know, we need to look at. Yes. Next thing is, how much time do we have before you guys want to try to make a decision? Can we wait for the comprehensive plan committee to get around to all the communities and talk to the people before we come back with a recommendation? Or are you looking to do something sooner than that? So that needs to be considered as well.
I really think it's this board's will. If I am anxious and curious about what this steering committee can do, especially getting community input, because a land use plan is going to be part of this comprehensive plan, overall plan. So I'm excited that we have that. And I think delaying it somewhat right now and moving it as a important piece of this land use plan sounds like a great idea.
Mr. Todd?
Yeah, Jason, I just want some more clarity on the 10 acres.
Okay.
If you have 10 acres and somebody wanted to develop on it, do the rules, do they fall under those rules and specific lots and restrictions? I mean, just correct me if I'm wrong. But I think last meeting we said if you had 10 acres, it was a benefit somehow.
Right. So,
But, go ahead.
No. So a 10-acre tract, the first perk that you'll get out of a 10-acre tract is if you go to record that 10-acre tract. For example, if you had a 20-acre tract and wanted to subdivide it into two 10-acre tracts, then you would bring it to me, the planning department, and I'll sign off on it. And then I'll take it and record it for you. That recording fee would be a $40 exempt fee. So that would be your first perk for a 10-acre tract of land. There's, per general statute, the 10-acre tract is exempt from the subdivision ordinance. So with that being said, roads that will go to a 10-acre tract do not have to follow any certain structure because our roads are within our subdivision ordinance. So if you, going back to a couple of weeks ago, I said that these developers will develop 4 or 5, well, up to 6 less than 10-acre tracts. And then the remaining portions of that land, they'll develop into 10-acre tracts because they don't have to build a road to them per se. They do have to ethically and morally build a road to them, but they do not have to build it to DOT specifications on that 10-acre tract.
Okay.
But just to clarify, when you're talking about the example you gave, 20 acres, you decide to split it into 2 10-acre tracts.
Right.
You're talking about one residence per tract. Am I correct?
On a
10-acre tract. If you go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, on a 10-acre tract, then you can put multiple dwellings on that 10-acre tract.
You're losing me now, Jason.
Well, no, we're not talking about anything presented last week. We're just talking about 10-acre tracts.
If I had a 10-acre tract and wanted to put 6 residents on it,
It's never been done. However, it is possible. And
would be outside of the subdivision order.
so let me tell you something else while we're on this subject. Past planners have allowed multiple residences, multiple homes on properties without a survey. As part of my next presentation that will be coming to you is I would like to go back to requiring surveys for additional residences or additional structures on properties. I think it's very important. So if you had a 10-acre tract and you wanted your son to build on it, right now, past practices for this county, he can build on it. Now, some banks will not allow him to build on it unless he has his own parcel. So you would go get a survey and have it parceled out. However, there are a lot of banks that will allow it, especially those paying in cash or homeowners paying in cash. But best practices would have us require a parcel to be surveyed out for that next residence.
So let me see if I've got.
I don't mean to
this in my
confuse you.
mind
I don't
right.
mean to
A
confuse you.
10-acre tract
Okay.
can have multiple residences on it, as long as it's not divided into many parcels. Or can it be divided?
When it is subdivided, it loses its exemption status.
Now we're on the same page now.
If there is a road that takes you to that 10-acre parcel, that road is going to have to be upgraded.
Okay. All right. We're on the same page now.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hope?
I don't think I'm gonna say anything right now.
All right. Well, I think just listening to the comments from the board tonight, it's a lot of massaging might have to be done on it, for lack of a better
Understand.
term. And listening to we got 3 members of the steering committee. I think that this board is probably going to want to hear some of those steering committee recommendations as far as it pertains to subdivisions.
Understood.
And the planning board can recommend, but it's up to the board of commissioners to actually approve changes. Am I right about that, Mr. Attorney?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
And I do appreciate the time, and I do want this board to understand that we are coming into a different time these upcoming years. We just want to make sure we have the structure and we're prepared for for what's going to be coming at us from these surrounding counties.
Any other questions or comments for the county planner?
Thank you, Mr.
Wallace.
Mayor.
Thank you, sir. All right, item 13, and I know we've been here for a while. We're gonna try to wind this up pretty quick. Closing on the 23rd for the holidays. Mrs. Deputy Manager.
And before we do that, just a clarification. So were you considering a motion to remand that back to the planning board?
Definitely do.
That's what I
Okay. Do
thought
have a
I
motion?
heard that
Do I
would
have
be
a motion?
appropriate if that's what you want to do.
So move.
Have a motion from Commissioner Ingram. Second from Commissioner Holt. Any discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There you have it. All right, Ms. Williamson.
At the recent Board of Commissioners meeting, employees were granted 4 hours of administrative leave for December the 23rd, the day before the Christmas break. Following the discussion and the decision made by the board, during our department head meeting, public safety leadership shared that they have traditionally gone ahead and granted their employees the 4 hours directly without having to track each employee when they do decide to take the 4 hours. So after consulting with payroll, we confirmed the 4 hours are considered administrative leave, not hours worked. And because they are not hours worked, they do not generate overtime. The administrative hours are paid at straight time only. So to ensure consistency, fairness, and efficiency, we recommend that all eligible employees be automatically credited for the 4 administrative hours. And this approach will provide several benefits, consistency across the departments. All employees are treated the same, including public safety, clean payroll process. Payroll can enter a single code for all eligible employees, reducing errors. No tracking burden. Departments will not need to monitor who was taking the hours and who was not. And fairness and transparency ensures equal treatment and simplifies communication to staff. So crediting the 4 administrative hours to all eligible employees is the cleanest and most equitable approach. It reduces administrative workload and aligns with how public safety already operates. And employees are very appreciative of the 4 hours that the board has granted them. It was not presented at the last board meeting this way because, one, I was unaware, and other staff was too. This is how public safety has been using the 4 hours in the past. So to ensure consistency, fairness, and efficiency, we recommend that all eligible employees be automatically credited with the 4 administrative hours.
Any questions? No questions. All right, do I have a motion that all eligible employees be credited with 4 administrative hours on December the 23rd?
So moved.
A motion from Commissioner Totten. Second from Commissioner Rose. Any discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Williamson.
And all employees do thank the board for this.
Updates, Mr. Manager.
So the board was polled about dates for a joint meeting with Board of Education. What we came up with out of talking with you was 2 dates, January 6th or January the 13th at 6 p.m. And their board is meeting tonight also. And I'll advise what they want to do with those dates. Also, the long-awaited report from Department of Labor's OSHA division related to our safety investigations has been received, and a requested informal conference is being tentatively scheduled for early January. I'll certainly keep you posted on that. And then some really good news for Milton. Governor Stein announced Southeast Regional Commission grants to boost economic growth, and Milton got $700,000 for a project that includes constructing a secondary source well, upgrading water pumps, and replacing water lines that support 112 residential and 13 commercial users. And we had done a support letter for that project back in July. And this is one of those seed grants, a different seed, strengthening economic infrastructure and development. And Mayor Upchurch wanted me to relay that Milton is very grateful for the letters of support from the county this past year, and she doesn't take that for granted. And that's all I have for my report.
Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as a follow-up to the discussion about Pelham Park, I had a conversation with Skip Green and Associates last week in reference to the Golden Leaf grant application. And he said he is very enthusiastic about providing some type of prospectus and a quote about what he could offer the county as far as providing an application to the Gold Leaf grant application. I think he does have history with Caswell County, and look forward to seeing an application from him, and we'll present that to you as soon as possible. And also, I have 5 pending tax foreclosure civil actions right now here in Caswell County. We hope that the taxes can be collected, or that at the very least a payment plan could be entered into. But if not, then we'll be looking at some potential tax foreclosure sales in January. And I'll have additional updates for you in the closed session.
Thank you. Commissioner comments or questions? Start with you, Commissioner Holt. Commissioner Totten?
No.
Mr. Smith?
I do have one thing for you, Scott. I'd like you to find out how we tax upgrades to equipment in industry. I know we can keep up with land, building permits and so forth, but when you bring in, say, a couple $100,000 piece of equipment, how do we account for that? How do we know? Those are tax dollars, just like building income. So I know you don't have that answer right now, but it's something you might want to look into to make sure we've got a really efficient way to do that.
Okay.
Commissioner Rose?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to thank everybody that came out tonight, and everybody been watching on Zoom. I know it's been a pretty long meeting. I would just like to wish our staff and the citizens of the county a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And one thing I will say, seeing that everything is going on in this world today, my hope and prayer is we'll reflect on what the true meaning of this time of the year is. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Ingram?
By this being the holiday season, I just want to wish everyone a happy and a safe holiday.
Commissioner Clackett?
Yes, I'd like this recorded verbatim. To the citizens of Caswell County, I'd like to explain that it was the state legislature that created and mandated my appointment to this seat. This past March, all I did when asked was make a promise to a widow and her son. I intend to continue to exert my integrity for the citizens as you come first. The social exclusion I've experienced was expected, so no surprise. I thank you, the citizens, for your trust and wish you all a Merry Christmas. Additionally, I also wish to thank this board and Caswell County staff a Merry Christmas. That's all I have.
All right, and following up on that, I myself would like to wish all the county employees and staff, as well as all our county residents, and of course, my fellow board members, Merry Christmas. And just backing up what Commissioner Rose said, just remember the reason we celebrate because of the birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and for no other reason. And with that said, announcements and upcoming events, Board of Adjustment tomorrow at 2:00. The 17th Years of Service Award Luncheon at the Senior Center. The 19th to the 21st be the last weekend, I think, for the ice skating rink. And on that note, brought some of my grandkids up here Friday night. They really enjoyed it. Now, I just stood back and watched. I didn't get out there, but they really enjoyed it. December the 20th, Pelham Winterfest. The 23rd, county offices are closed at noon. County offices be closed the 24th, 25th, and 26th. Also be closed January the 1st in observance of New Year's Day. Our next meeting will be January the 5th at 5 p.m. here at the courthouse. Closed session to consult with an attorney employed or retained by a public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, subsection A3. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Claggett.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rose. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. We now sit in closed session.